Of President Chen a week later. A look at the political fallout. Watch World News Asia only on CNN.
A man of twists and turns. Muammar Gaddafi once tried to revolutionize the Arab world and then decided to rally the African continent instead. He led OPEC's oil embargo against the West in the 1970s, but now only wants to export more oil. And as we've heard, he was a longtime sponsor and host of terrorists. But he was one of the first Arab leaders to condemn the September 11th attacks and has helped in the investigations that followed.
Welcome back. People who have seen Colonel Gaddafi up close say he seems sleepy or distant or perhaps drugged or absent-minded. A lot of people who have only seen him in the media say he looks, well, at the very least, odd. But Mr. Gaddafi has been in power for more than 30 years, and he hasn't been absent-minded for all of that time. Joining us now to talk about the Libyan leader is Omar Turbi, a U.S.-Libyan relations expert. Thanks so much for being with us. Have you figured him out?
Well, being an American of Libyan descent, yes, I've lived throughout my entire adult life, looking at him, studying him, recognizing some of his positive or negative attributes. Yes.
Well, what would you say about him? What kind of man is he?
Well, I would say, if I were to describe Gaddafi, I would say he's very colorful, very imaginative, and creative in some ways. In fact, a few years ago, probably over 10 years ago, he pushed an idea of building the great man-made river, and everybody thought he was very crazy, and now the world recognizes that project as being one of the world's interesting projects, bringing water all the way from the south bottom of the desert to the north of Libya. So sometimes some of his crazy ideas do make sense.
Well, we just heard from our previous guest, Bruce Fine, who essentially characterized Gaddafi as a criminal. Let me ask you, how has he been as a leader of his 5 million people? Has he been generous? Has he been wasteful? Has he been brutal? Has he been benevolent?
Well, a combination of all of the above. I think it's something that he himself admits to and doesn't really take total blame for it. If one wants to be frank, he's been the leader of Libya for over 30 years. He's directed Libya's domestic as well as international policies, and I think the regime, the Libyan people, and himself could tell you that many of these policies have not really resulted in much success as far as the Libyan society is concerned.
How has he stayed in power for so long? Being the dictator of a country that wealthy, I would imagine, would put your life at risk. There's an enormous motive to try and do away with him or topple his government. Why hasn't it happened?
Well, you know, in the post-colonialism, be it in North Africa, the heart of Africa, or in fact some parts of Asia, democracy doesn't really evolve that quickly and that fast. So he's not different than many of the leaders that are in power or have been in power for a long time. So he's not unique in that sense, but one can say that he's served for over 30 years, probably the longest serving leader of a country in that region.
Do his people support him? If Libyans could speak freely, what do you think they'd tell you?
Well, you know, there have been some reports, Washington Post articles, a few other reports that have interviewed some people on the streets. They feel that the upcoming, hopefully, relations and full normalization with the United States is going to bring some better things for Libya. As you know, there's more than 32% unemployment. The oil industry relies very heavily on U.S. technology and oil companies. So, yeah, there's a definite interest from the overwhelming number of the people in Libya that perhaps better relations with the United States is going to improve their lives.
The economic problems are real and they are pressing, and yet some people who visited Libya say that someone, and maybe it's Muammar Gaddafi, deserves credit because there aren't enormous income disparities in Libya. The country seems to have good infrastructure. People get the schools and hospitals they need. By the standards of Africa, which are admittedly very low, people live very well.
Yeah, I would say, well, Libya is a wealthy country. It's one of the you may say 5, 10 Arab oil-producing countries, so it has enjoyed tremendous oil revenues over 30 years. I think there could have been a few more things done, but all in all, I think you would find less people on the streets begging. You find, I don't mean less like in the thousands, but maybe very, very few. And I think overall the Libyan people are okay.
Well, with that sober assessment, Omar Turbi, thanks so much for talking with us.
Thanks very much to you.
We're going to leave you now with some pictures, some images that some would have never thought possible after the Lockerbie bombing. The odd couple, a meeting between the British Prime Minister Tony Blair and Libya's leader, Muammar Gaddafi.